This lesson is on relative adverbs. So relative adverbs introduce relative clauses. And the relative adverbs are where, when, and why. And they're used to join two smaller but related sentences. And if you have formal text in which you get a preposition plus which, you can replace this with a relative adverb to make the text a bit more informal. And the rules for restrictive and non-restrictive relative clauses still apply here. Very important. So we use relative adverbs to join two smaller but related sentences. So here's two small but related sentences. This is a swimming pool. I used to swim in the pool. That sounds a bit simplistic, so we join the two by saying, this is the pool where I used to swim. Or I got home from work. I did the dishes. Again, sounds a bit simplistic, we can do better. I did the dishes when I got home from work. Steve called me. I don't know the reason. I don't know the reason why Steve called me. And we would usually omit the reason, this is why it's in brackets, and just say I don't know why Steve called me. If we have formal text, which uses prepositions plus which, we can replace that with a relative adverb to make the text appear less stiff and stuffy. So that's the pub in which we first met. Sounds a little bit stiff, doesn't it? So we say that's the pub where we first met. Or there was a bitterly cold winter the year in which he was born. Better sounding is there was a bitterly cold winter the year when he was born. Or I will tell you the reason for which Greg is sad. Again, it sounds very old-fashioned and stiff. I will tell you why Greg is sad is really what people would say these days. And the rules for restrictive and non-restrictive clauses still apply here. So just as a reminder, a restrictive or defining clause adds essential information which we need to identify a noun. And if we remove this clause, the sentence either makes no sense or is missing important information. And when we do this, we need no commas. And a non-restrictive or non-defining clause adds additional information to a noun that we've already defined. And if we remove the additional clause, the sentence is fine. And when we have this type of clause, we put commas around the extra information. And we'll look at some examples of those now. So when we add essential information, the pub where we first met is a special place. And if we take out this essential information that's underlined, we get the pub is a special place. Well, what pub? Why is it special? The thing that makes it special is it's the pub where we first met. And that's important. Or the 70s were a time when many fashion sins were committed. I don't know if you remember that time. Horrible wide trousers, massive jacket lapels, huge wide ties, bad haircuts, shoes with platform, horrible stuff. Hopefully they'll never come back. But if we remove the underlined part, which is the restrictive clause, we get the 70s were a time. What kind of time? Doesn't really tell us anything. Or I don't know why Paul was late. If we just remove the underlined part, we get I don't know the reason. What reason? For what? Again, that it's missing the important information. And in all the cases where we've listed the complete sentence, you'll notice there's no commas anywhere to be seen. Now, if we look at non-restrictive or non-defining clauses, we'll see that they add additional information. So Munich, where I used to live, is a fascinating city. And we see the commas around the non-restrictive clause, which when we remove it, we get Munich is a fascinating city. The fact that I used to live there is just a little bit of extra information. Summer, when it is warm, is my favourite season. And when we remove the underlined part, we get summer is my favourite season, which is a perfectly legitimate sentence. It tells us what we need to know. The bit about when it is warm is just a bit of extra information. And the relative adverb why cannot be used to introduce non-restrictive relative clauses.